Hi, welcome to this week's Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. I'm so excited. We've got a full house this week. We've got Sara Adrien, Anna Harrington, Syrie James, and Melissa Kendall. Ladies, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure.
We also have Anne Rollins has a release this week too, and I'm not sure if she's going to be able to pop in and join us. If she can, we'll catch up with her. If not, I'll catch up with her in a future week. But let's dive right in since we have so many releases this week, and we're going to start with Melissa's book, which is Benefactor to the Baroness. It's book 3. There are lots of books 3s this week in the Seductive Sleuths, and this is a sapphic romance, which is really exciting and a lovely setup for the book. Can you tell us about this one?
Sure. So Benefactor to the Baroness is like you said, the third and final book in the Seductive Sleuth series, with a sapphic book featuring 2 female main characters who are over the age of 40 as well.
Oh, cool.
Rosemary is the aunt of the main character in book 1. She reluctantly agrees to attend a ladies' charity meeting after her niece tells her she can't spend her whole life alone in her cottage. There she meets a matchstick seller turned Dowager Baroness Fontaine, who has been using funds from her charitable organization to bribe owners of brutal workhouses into releasing children into her care. Although Rosemary is initially dismissive of Fontaine's mission, she eventually agrees to accompany her across the ocean in the guise of her companion to investigate why orphans have been vanishing from the streets of London. The book is also inspired by 2 spinsters in 1860 who transported children from workhouses to receiving homes in Canada. As many as 1 in 10 Canadians are descendant from the nearly 100,000 British home children who came here during that period.
I had no idea. That is quite a number. That's awesome. So do they end up making it across the ocean?
Yes. So they cross the ocean. Sorry, I didn't have anything else on my list here.
That's okay. That's okay.
So they take a group of orphans that they liberate from a workhouse, and they take a boat across the ocean and find out that these children are being taken and put into servitude. So together they have to figure out what are they going to do, how are they going to rescue all of these children, and also there's only one boat. There's only one bunk on the boat. So that's a popular thing, right?
I thought the only one bunk was a nice twist on the only one bed trope. So awesome. And you said it's the last book in the series?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like a really interesting read, and I had no idea. That many people would have been descended from those children. So that's kind of fascinating. Those are the bits of history that it's interesting to learn about. So, awesome. Well, the next book that we had come out this week is Sara's book, and it's a Lion's Den book, and it's The Lion's Legacy. And is this your 3rd Lion's Den?
It's my 4th.
4th.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, and they all know each other, so they're all friends. Actually, let me start with that. They are all connected to my doctors on Harley Street. Mm-hmm. They were the doctors on Harley Street, but now they're my doctors on Harley Street. They can be ours. There is a duology within this Lion's Den interconnected series that is also connected to my larger series, Miracles on Harley Street. And there were 2 dukes. They're both the 2 Dukes of Duncan. John Stonebridge, the hero in this current book, lost his title. And he's not happy about it, as you can imagine. I kept making it worse and worse and worse for him, but he clawed himself out of it because he's so amazing. He works for and earns his second chance at love. So this is my first real second chance novel that I ever wrote. And his love is Lady Melissa Thumbridge, and she's really worth all the effort. She would give up anything in her life if she could just make her little sister happy. But we already know that her little sister got the previous book. She was book 1. Her name was Lexi in The Lion's Golden Touch. So now that her little sister is happy, what can Melissa do with her own life? And then there's John, of course, and she really, really, really loves him, and she can't have him because she's spoken for by Prinny. So this is real. The Prince Regent used to set aside future mistresses at his court. So she's spoken for. And how can John, if he lost his title and he has no sway anymore, compete for the Prince Regent, for the girl that caught his heart the moment they met? So there is a lot that has to happen. And Melissa goes to Mrs. Dovelion, because who do you go to if you have all these feelings and you want someone you can't have? And Mrs. Dovelion makes it very clear that she is not in the business of interfering with the Prince Regent. And she's a matchmaker, not a matchbreaker. And so Melissa says, you didn't make the match that I want. So this becomes another problem, and I'll let you read that part. And there are a couple of really fun twists in this story that I'm hoping will make people laugh. There are also some that might make people cry, but in a good way. So there is a kitten, and he's a bit of a rescue kitten, and he was sick. And so Melissa, because she has such a big heart, tells John really quite frankly that at this castle there's plenty of room for a kitten. And she really wants to take care of the kitten. And this kitten is full of mischief and helps Mrs. Dovelion out as a tiny little lion cub, sort of, with the matchmaking efforts. So I had the most fun with the puns writing this book ever. I thought the editors would not let them fly, and the editors loved them. They said this was so funny. So I hope everybody will try this and enjoy it. My little historical tidbit for this book and how it is connected to the other doctors is that if Melissa and John don't do what Prinny wants them to do, then all the doctors on Harley Street, who are from my other series, could lose their royal warrant. And then
those are some stakes.
Yes. And royal warrants still exist. They're still real. And once a business gets them, they don't want to lose them. So I put a really nice author's note in there with some of my research. So I hope that people will really enjoy reading how Melissa and John have to save the day, because for a big part of the book, they just keep making it worse.
Oh, wow. Well, it sounds like a lot of fun, and I love a good Lion's Den book. Those are always so much fun. Awesome. So the next book that comes out this week is actually Anne's book, and it's Incident in Ingleton, and it is also book 3 because we're doing lots of book 3s this week in the Beaumont Secret. So I will make sure that I pop the link to that one in the comments so you can grab it if you haven't gotten it already. And we'll talk to Anne in a future time. But for now, the book after that is Anna's book, and it's The Duke's Only Desire, and it's also book 3 because apparently that's what we're doing this week in The Dukes of Darkness. Anna, can you tell us about this one?
Yes, so this one is the 3rd book of the Dukes of Darkness series, and it is Shay Douglas's book. He's the Duke of Malvern, and the book actually starts about 15 years before the present time when the main story picks up, because Sophie Winter is, I think she's 12 when the book opens, and she's been promised in marriage to the future Duke of Malvern, whom she hates. But there's this clause in there that says if she ever backs out, her family has to pay 20,000 pounds, and that would ruin her whole family. So she can't leave. And they put that clause in because her mother fled her own marriage 10 years earlier. And so they want to make sure it doesn't happen again. And what happens is Sophie hates her intended, but she falls in love with his younger brother, Shay. And and Shay falls in love with her. He stops by to see her. He's a mercenary in the wars with Prussia. And so whenever he's home on leave to England, he makes certain that he stops by and sees her. And he wants her for himself, of course, but he can't stop his brother from marrying her. The night before the wedding, however, there's a huge fight between the two brothers, and they knock over a lantern in the barn and catch the barn on fire, and the older brother ends up dying and Shay ends up hideously scarred. And that launches my Regency Beauty and the Beast story, because Sophie never really knows what happened. Shay blames himself for his brother's death, and he thinks that he doesn't ever deserve to have her love going forward because he was responsible for his brother's death. 10 years later, after they've broken off and they haven't spoken and she doesn't know what's going on and he's been a recluse up in his Yorkshire estate, she's engaged. She's getting engaged to someone else. And he suddenly shows up at her father's townhouse the night of her engagement party and says, no, you're already promised to me. And I will hold you to the contract and I will bankrupt your family if you don't come and marry me. And what she doesn't know is that her other fiance is a fortune hunter who thinks she has tons of money and she doesn't. And so he's simply using her. And so Shay ends up saving her. He takes her back to his North Yorkshire estate. And it's going to be just a marriage of convenience. They're never going to be intimate. They're never going to love each other. It's just going to be superficial, like most marriages of the ton at the time. And what he doesn't realize is that she still loves him and she doesn't care about the scars. She wants to hold Shay back. And so she does everything she can to get him back. She has these sexy little dinners at night in his room. She seduces him in the garden. She just has all kinds of little things up her sleeve to get him to admit that he loves her. And what happens is that his uncle, who wants the title for himself, shows back up threatening to have it attainted under murder because he's convinced that Shay really did murder his brother to get Sophie in the title. And so they have to work together to keep the title and save the dukedom and to live happily ever after.
Oh, that's a lot of stuff.
Oh, it's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. Yeah. But I love that idea when he feels like he's unworthy of things because of stuff that happened and she still loves him anyway. And I'd love a good Beauty and the Beast. That's, those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, some of my favorites too. And, the line that keeps coming up in the book is that scars are a lot deeper than skin deep. And that the scars are healed, but the wounds underneath are still raw. And so she has to help him heal. And, she goes through a lot with her mother when her mother ran off when she was a little girl. So, he helps her learn to love again as well. So
yeah, there'd be a lot of trust stuff there.
Yeah, lots. That's the whole thing is trust and the idea of convincing yourself that you are worthy enough to be loved, that everyone deserves to be loved. And that's sort of the main theme of this book.
That's one of our universals. That's the reason we read romance.
And it is, and shameless plug, this is the first book in the series. So The Dukes in the Darkness, and this is the Dukes of Darkness series. And it's all a little bit darker, like the name implies. So it's not your typical Regency romance, but again, there's a lot that goes on, a lot of action, lots of angst and secrets and darkness in their backgrounds and all the fun stuff that I hope keeps everybody turning their pages. So
it sounds like so much fun. And it's not a shameless plug if I ask you to come on and talk.
Good, thank you.
That's kind of the reason. So well, the next book that comes out this week is Syrie's book, and it's her Dragonblade debut, and it is The Mysteries of Pendoir Hall, and it is book one finally, in the Audacious Sisterhood of Smoke and Fire. I love the title. I love the title, and I love the logo for the title, or the series title is fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about this one, Syrie? And this is a mystery.
This is a historical mystery with lots of romance. So, as you said, first in a series of Victorian historical mysteries. I have 13 published novels before I came to Dragonblade. I've been writing historical romance and historical fiction. And now I'm so excited to be writing historical mysteries, which have always been my first love. And so, we don't have the book yet. But here's what the cover looks like. It doesn't really do it justice because, the colors are so much better on the book. But I love this cover. So many homages to the story. There's the Cornwall coastline and an ancient manor house on a dangerous cliff and a threatening sky. And it's my favorite color, which is blue. So cool. I'm just thrilled by the covers that I've gotten for this series. So the inspiration for this series is I've been addicted to Gothic suspense and mysteries ever since I was a kid. I mean, Victoria Holt and Mary Stewart and Agatha Christie. I just love reading those books. And my favorite book since I first found it in a library at age 11 is Jane Eyre. I probably read Jane Eyre 97 times. And it's Jane Eyre that inspired the heroine and hero in this book.
Oh, wow.
In Jane Eyre, in the last third of the book, Jane runs away from Thornfield Hall to escape the, mad woman in the attic story that everyone knows and loves. She ends up spending the last third of the book with her cousins, Mary and Diana Rivers, and their brother. And so I thought, what an interesting story Diana Rivers has. This cousin of Jane Eyre. She came from a wealthy family. Her father lost his fortune in a bad investment, and she had to become a governess, and so did her sister. So I thought, I'll create a series, 3 sisters who have this background. They came from wealth, but they've been governesses, and now they, have a dream. The other 2 sisters have a dream to open a school. Now, Diana has to go work as a governess. So at the end of Jane Eyre, we have an epilogue where Jane says, Diana Rivers married a gallant Royal Navy captain. I thought, ooh, okay, I know who my hero is. I'll make him the captain who just inherited Pendawar Hall, and he's home on leave with a leg injury. And, like you were saying, Anna, a brooding, charismatic hero, fixated on being unworthy because of trouble in his past. And here I have my heroine who has had 2 failed romances and really doesn't believe she can ever trust a man again. So they each have issues going into the story. And the series title, Audacious Sisterhood of Smoke and Fire, that comes from the sisters' mother's favorite saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. And she taught them, don't ever just accept anything at face value. If something seems wrong, investigate. Don't stop at anything till you discover the truth. And so each of my sisters gets their own book. They each get a murder mystery to solve and a romance, or sometimes 2 murders to solve, and their own life is in danger the whole time. So the story for this particular book, smart, feisty, bold heroine on a quest to solve a murder. Her mission is investigate the mysterious death of her godmother's brother, the former baronet of Pendawar Hall, who supposedly committed suicide by throwing himself off that dangerous cliff. But did he? Or was he pushed?
I don't think he threw himself off. I'm going to go no.
So by whom? The parish constable said, case closed. He killed himself and that's it, but she doesn't believe it. So here she is as a governess in the perfect place to start learning what's happening at the house, what's happening with the villagers, and what's happening with the hero, and what is he hiding. And there's a second mystery going on. The 15-year-old girl in her charge, this brilliant, lovely young woman, has a very mysterious problem. She can't read or write.
Oh.
So it's Diana's job as her governess to figure out why. And we, the reader, will know pretty quickly that this young lady has dyslexia.
Mm-hmm.
Dyslexia was completely unknown at the time, and she has to figure out how to help this young woman. So there's a moment that's kind of like from The Miracle Worker, where she helps her understand the connection between language and writing and reading. And of course, the romance. She falls madly in love with our Captain William Falbrook. And, he's equally enamored of her. So there's lots of sexual tension going on throughout this whole book. We have a meet cute on the road, an homage to Jane Eyre. She's on her way to Pendawar Hall, and there's this huge storm and lightning sets on fire a tree, and it crashes on the road. It blocks the entire road. Her carriage can't go on, and he comes galloping up on his horse. But their first encounter is anything but pleasant. I'll just tell you, things don't start off too well. And then he's not real happy that she's nosing around into his uncle's demise. He doesn't want her to be looking into that. And every theory she comes up with, he shoots it down. And she's wondering why?
Because he must have something nefarious.
But she's smart. She refuses to give up. Her life's in terrible danger because whoever really did kill the baronet doesn't want her looking into it and tries to kill her several times. She's very resourceful, and she manages to survive. But this book has a mermaid's curse. It has mysterious footsteps in the night and a smuggler's fate, where a very dramatic thing happens. And it's a really fun and romantic read. I hope everyone enjoys this book. It comes out Saturday, February 22nd.
The day after this airs.
The day of what?
The day after this airs. This will air on it.
And there's 2 more books in the series. The Secrets of Thorndale Manor, that comes out June 28th, and Danger at Dartmoor Park, which publishes October 28th. And they each feature another sister. And all the women show up in one form or another in all of the books.
Oh, great. I love it. I love interconnected series when you get to see the characters over and over again. And there's murder mysteries in each one, heavy on the mystery.
They're all murder mysteries with lots of twists and turns, lots of surprises. I promise you will never guess who did it. I've had a lot of advanced readers who gushed, and I've got these wonderful blurbs from fellow authors you can find on the Amazon page or on my website. And so far, absolutely nobody figured it out. So, yay.
Oh, that makes it extra fun when it's a puzzle that's hard to solve. So awesome. Well, that sounds great. And we had so many good books coming out this week. So there's something there for everyone. So we have a few minutes left, more time than I thought we were going to have. And we were talking a little bit earlier. Syrie, you had mentioned about costuming, and Melissa, you've got your hat, and Sara, you and Anna, you have both talked about research or given me tidbits of things that I didn't know before. Can we talk a little bit about the parts of history that are not necessarily the things you write about, the things that you love, either learning about the costuming or doing research for the books, or things that draw you into the story, those kind of things, for those of us who didn't particularly like history in school and feel like we missed something?
I'll talk about that. I'm a huge fan, not only of the Brontes, but also of Jane Austen, and a member of Jazz and that. So I attend all these conferences where we dress up in Regency wear and dance at the ball and learn everything about, the era that Jane Austen lived in. And research is my happy place. I just love all the many trips I get to take to England to research all the books that I write. And I spent a lot of time in Cornwall so that I could make sure I got it right for this particular novel. And then the next 2 books are set in Yorkshire, which is Bronte country. So I spent a lot of time there, and I visited all the places that Charlotte ever went and everywhere that Jane Austen ever went. So I have a closet full of costumes, some Victorian, but mostly Regency. And I have a play that I wrote, Jane Austen in 89 minutes. It's a comedy, and I just directed it at a professional theater here in Beverly Hills, and I costumed the entire thing. All the women I costumed out of my closet because I have so many Regency gowns, and then so many hats, so many bonnets. It was really, really fun. And the good, exciting news is that this play is going to be published by a major publishing house and distributed.
Fun.
So it's
fun
to spend time in the past.
Yeah, I can imagine. Melissa, what about you? I've been watching your pictures of the gown that you restored on Facebook.
Oh wow! Oh, my thing just freaked out. Okay, I was looking on Etsy I always look for deals, so I found a early 1900s lace Edwardian gown that someone was selling, and it was an extra small, so I knew it would require some restoration and alteration. So I bought it. I looked up how to properly treat that kind of old fabric, although it was in surprisingly good condition.
Did we lose her? Oh, I think we lost her. Well, anyway, if you haven't, go to Melissa's Facebook page and look at the pictures of the gown. It's gorgeous. It's white, and she shows the pictures of the restoration. I've been completely unable to do that and just following along because it's really interesting. So
that's amazing.
So, what about you? Do you find any particular rabbit holes that interest you when you're doing research?
I go down all the rabbit holes, and I spent an hour once figuring out why princes aren't really called prince, and why their children are not prince and princesses, and all of that. And it just thank God people have lots of time on their hands and can put all that on Google these days. I don't know what people did before they had Google to do research. But my favorite area, so I do Regency, so the Napoleonic era, and my favorite aspect are gardens and architecture. So
Oh, cool. Oh, nobody talks about that usually.
I love gardens. Oh.
Yeah. And I have an entire book from a previous series that's a woman who wants to be an architect. And of course, she couldn't be at the time. And so I got to, basically design my dream Georgian house by writing that novel. So it was so much fun to do that. And in this book that's coming out tomorrow, Sophie's favorite hobby is to work in the garden. So she loves her garden. So I get to talk about that in there. So I love historical houses and historical gardens. And in fact, I'm going to get to retire early in about 5 years. And I plan on moving to Scotland, and the University of Edinburgh has a master's and doctorate program in architectural history. So I want to go there. I need another PhD, like I need a hole in the head. I don't know what I would do with it, except that I love to learn and I love to be around others who are learning. And I can't think of anything better than to learn about Georgian architecture in Edinburgh.
Yeah, authors are learners. I think that that's like part of the job description, is being fascinated by things so that you can then share that fascination with readers. So
oh yeah, and I will force it on them whether they find it fascinating or not. I'm just like, did you know about this from the old houses? Did you know about this? And so all kinds of myths and untruths and things that I've uncovered that annoy the heck out of tour guides at historic houses. I just have to say, I am the worst person to go on a tour in those historic houses, because I ask the nitpicky little questions and I correct them when they say things that are wrong. Like, you have all probably heard that the fire screens were put in front of fires to keep makeup from melting off women's faces. Yeah, that's not true. That is not true. That is not true. They were meant to deflect the heat. That's true. But it wasn't because makeup melted. I mean, my God, how hot would your face have to be before your wax makeup melted? Yeah, and even today, lipstick's made out of wax. That's the primary thing. And there's no contemporary evidence anywhere that anybody's face ever melted from the heat. You would get up and walk away, right? But
that's a Doctor Who thing. Face melting is a Doctor Who thing.
Yes, yeah, that is a Doctor Who thing. And the other one I hear a lot is beds are shorter because people were shorter back then. Again, not true. People were not shorter back then. And beds on average are the same length that they are today. They just look shorter because they're taller and they're big tester beds and 4-poster beds. And they're in these giant rooms in these historic houses. If we saw an average bed in an average little cottage somewhere, it would look gigantic. So, yeah, tour guides hate me.
Well, Anna, I just want to thank you for mentioning gardens and houses, because I think all of us set our books in wonderful historic houses, and that is the fun. I think that's my favorite part of going to England and researching, is visiting all the incredibly historic manor homes. And I draw up an entire architectural plan for every single one whenever I visit one. And all of my books, they're set in a different house. So they feature a different manor home where the mystery happens. And that's really part of the fun and excitement.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It really is. And I often just find my hero and heroine in the plot based on where do they live, and just that sense of place, and it goes from there. What about you, Sarah? What's your main research rabbit hole that you like to fall down?
So much research. I'm a law professor. I have actually, my very first email I sent to Dragonblade when they said, we're ready, you can submit your first manuscript, was, where do my footnotes go? And they were like, no footnotes. So I'm laughing at it, but I'm also crying about it, because I would have so many footnotes. I just love talking about books and research. which is why I love hanging out with you so much, very much. And for my Miracles on Harley Street with the Doctor series, I actually looked at the procedures and of how a lot of those procedures were done, which was very easy then to rule out why the characters were not in the room for some of these procedures.
Mhm.
I wrote one, and the next one is coming soon, sort of first ever Regency romance dentist romance.
Oh, cool.
And I
Because you've
did,
been an ophthalmologist already, and
yeah, and
trying to think what the one was.
there's the eye surgeon who invented the first scalpel, well, his professor invented it. He was in the room, I don't know. And then we have the apothecary who brought Ayurveda to London for a lot of the herbal medicines. The next one that's coming out in just a couple of weeks is an orthopedist. And then we have a nurse who has a lot of really cool vibes. I was there actually where their practice is now. I interned there. I was as an intern at the Inner Temple in London, and I loved the library. Everyone else was going to lunch, and do you know that library is almost diagonally across the street from the House of Twinings, which was already there in the Regency era. It was already the House of Twinings, and had a royal warrant. It's like, you guys go have lunch. I have other stuff to do. So it was just so much fun. And I am the queen of asking really what people think stupid questions, but then I go and I do the research. And even when people get annoyed, they get even more annoyed if I educate them on why this isn't a stupid question at all. Because why would someone else write a treatise about it? I just love that so much. You just have to find your crowd for people who love it as much as you do. And it gives, yeah, I know, right? And it gives importance to what has happened. And I try to bring that into my books because there's a universality about what we are writing. The lessons that our heroes and heroines learn are universal. You can still apply them today. I know they wouldn't have had, like the dentist wouldn't have had an electric drill, but that's really not what people love most about that anyway.
But like those universal truths, you're absolutely right, are true now, and it's the reason that we read romances to do the seen and be seen thing. So.
Yeah.
Ladies, it was a treat to talk to you. I knew we were going to run over time because there were just so many interesting things to talk about. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us this week. I'm going to make sure I put the links to all of your books in the comments. So if you haven't gotten them already, you can grab them. Dragonblade books are the best deal on pre-order and release. I say it every week because it's true every week. If you don't grab them on time, you can always read in Kindle Unlimited. And also make sure I pop Anne's title in as well, so you can grab that if you haven't. So. Ladies, thanks again for taking the time to talk. I really do appreciate it.